An NHS nurse who was almost strangled to death by a patient says that she now lives in fear at work. Comes as an ITV News Investigations finds that violent assaults on hospital workers in England has increased every year for the last 5 years.
117 out of the 180 NHS hospital trusts in England responded to the Freedom of Information request. And the investigation found that there were more than 30,000 physical attacks on hospital workers in 2019, which increased by 21% to more than 40,000, in 2023.
These are extraordinary figures. There were over 2,500 assaults reported to the police in 2023, of which only 31, that's 31 out of 2,500,
oh my goodness,
ended in a caution or a charge, let alone a prosecution. Well, we're joined now by nurse Kazeema Afzal and ITV News Investigations editor who's been on this story, Dan Hewitt. Welcome to you both. Nice to see you. What happened to you just sounds horrific. You very nearly died. This was a patient that you were looking after, you were taking care of. Just tell us exactly what happened.
So, as I normally do my job is we have handovers to, if anything happened that day, we get instructions, and normally we would just go in the room. It was a night shift commenced, so me and the male staff, we walked up as normal, went in the bedroom and said hello. He replied. We just sat down. But soon after, because he was doing a social media live, our alarms went off. Because if another ward alarm goes off, ours will automatically go off, and we can't touch that until they cancel it.
Right.
He said, you need to switch that off, and I said, I can't do that. And he goes, take the batteries out, and he got really angry. He goes, I'm on a live, this is disturbing me. I said, you're used to this, though, because you've been here for almost 6 months. You're used to these alarms. So it didn't make sense. So he charged himself to the nurse in charge and said, I don't want no one on my observation. I just want to be alone. And then the nurse said, we can't do that, because that's the doctor's discussion for you to be on these ops, and these staff members has to be with you. So he was not happy at all. Went towards the bedroom. He said to the male staff, I'm getting changed, so you need to stay outside. I just felt something not right, but I just kept myself where I can see everything. So I was facing him, left, right, so everything was in my eyesight. He was rummaging through his clothes, he normally did, pulled out this cord and ran ever so fast, like it didn't give me a chance to even literally do anything. It was wrapped around my neck within seconds.
This is the cord he took from a hoodie.
He was already out, ready.
And he wrapped it around your neck, your throat, and you were effectively throttled. So
it was so fast and so tight, I could not even scream or shout.
And he was saying things to you. Can you tell us what he said?
It's time for you to suffer your death. It's going to fun seeing you die. And then he laughed in my face.
Jeez.
Absolutely horrific. You, just to establish, you're working in a mental health unit.
Yes.
And this is a situation where there should be 2 nursing staff with this particular patient.
Correct.
Why did your colleague, the male member of staff, leave the room when this mental health patient, who should have had 2 members of staff there present, said, I'm going to get changed?
That member of staff was only following instructions. Yeah. He could not come in other than we have instructions to do so. So he was left with no choice either. So this care plan was already, we follow whatever's in the care plan. We can't change ourselves. So he was just doing his job.
Daniel, what happened to Kazeema being attacked by a patient in the course of work is something that is getting worse.
Yeah. It's getting much worse, and it's going up every single year. To be clear, there will always be, inexplicably and unfortunately, attacks on NHS staff because of mental health issues, because of alcohol abuse, because of drug abuse. But the trend is heading in a worrying direction. This has been going up year after year after year. And the number of police call-outs to hospitals is up 142% in the last 5 years. It's an enormous jump. And now, when you speak to nurses and to people in the NHS, this is not an excuse by any means. What they say, driving this, is the fact that waiting times are going up and up and up, and people get more and more and more frustrated. That is not an excuse ever to attack a member of staff. But that is what they say is driving this. And more and more people are waiting longer and longer and longer, and they are taking it out on the people that are there to care for them.
The thing is, most of us, all of us in the studio, and almost everybody watching this, the thought of attacking a health worker is just beyond the pale. It is the very opposite of the way we relate to them. You say it's because of longer waiting times and waiting lists. Are the people who are committing these assaults, do they have form? Do you know? Do they have form for previous assault?
It's hard to know, difficult to know, because a lot of this data isn't actually collected. We've had to kind of get this data through freedom of information requests. It's not routinely available anymore. It used to be, it's not anymore. So it's difficult to know about individual cases. I think in some cases there will be people who've offended before. As you say, it's inexplicable. And to be clear, that is not there's never an excuse or a reason to do anything like this. But that is the kind of reason that kind of, when you speak to staff, there are a number of measures being put in place by hospitals. It's quite common now for nurses to wear security cameras in A&E wards on their lapel. But what they say here is that actually solving this problem will only happen if you tackle the resource issue, because they are the brunt of people's frustration.
And yet, you know, and you're quite right to say it's a very thin excuse to talk about longer waiting times. We're seeing huge rises in assaults on shop workers, and that's got nothing to do with waiting times. These are people just going in and assaulting them. So we seem to be living in more violent times, don't we?
Yeah, and actually I went to a hospital in Nottingham, and it's funny you say that, Richard, because one of the bosses there said that to me, that anecdotally they feel like there's a shift in society since the pandemic. It's almost that people are more angry. And I was speaking to someone in the Department of Health about this, who's saying that they're looking into this idea that there has been this shift in society, there's a lack of respect for public servants, and this frustration that appears to be bubbling up in society. Teachers are seeing it as well, more angry students. There's something happening here it's hard to put your finger on it, but Kazeema and other members of the NHS staff working are feeling the brunt of this anger.
Well, you say tackling the resource issue is possibly the starting point, but what about prosecutions? I mean, 2,500 cases being investigated by the police, 31, only 31 resulting in any kind of action, like a caution, an arrest or a prosecution.
Yeah, it's incredibly small, and the government say, and the hospitals say, part of the reason they're bringing in these cameras is so that there's more evidence, so that they can prove these attacks taking place and how they took place. But the fact that we're having nurses wearing, I mean, we were discussing it before, weren't we? The fact that nurses are wearing cameras on shift in A&E, and nurses say they have them turned off, and then they will say to a patient who's getting angry, OK, I'm going to switch my camera on now. The fact that you need that deterrent not to attack a member of the NHS is incredible.
To establish, Kazeema, that you were dealing with a patient who was born biologically female, which is the reason why when they said that they wanted to use the toilet change, that was the reason that the male member of staff left the room. But, of course, they went behind a door in order to do that, this particular patient. So would your argument be that for security, there should always be 2 members of staff in a room with a patient?
Yeah, and definitely. That's one thing.
Irrespective of their gender?
Yeah. It should have been 2.
Yeah.
That's the reason why there is 2.
Yeah.
Because so we were both with this patient, but leaving that room, but he's just following instructions, so he.
Yes,
no fault of the male nurse, just following instructions, but
whoever's made these.
The instructions are wrong and need to be changed.
Yeah.
Very briefly, because we're over time now, but I do want to know this. How did you survive? What happened?
I tried to find a gap through the cord. He tied another knot. I started losing energy through my body, and I just had a massive blackout. So in court, I heard it didn't take one, but it took about 2, 3 people to just come in and save me.
In the nick of time?
Yeah, because he wouldn't let go. He wouldn't do it. He goes,
he was really trying to kill you?
Oh, yeah. He said, I ain't finished it yet.
Well, he's been in court now. He's awaiting sentence.
His sentence left.
Yeah,
in a couple of weeks' time.
Found guilty of attempted murder and intentional strangulation. Kazeema, I'm so glad you're with us, and thank you for being so open. And, I mean, Daniel, that whatever the reason, the prosecution rate needs to be intensified, doesn't it? More people need to be held accountable.
We need a deterrent, don't we? 7:34, One quote from the NHS here, a spokesperson told us, any abuse or violence directed at NHS staff in whatever setting they work in is unacceptable, and every member of our hard-working staff has the fundamental right to be safe at work, and it's our priority to eliminate violence and abuse, which will not be tolerated.
And the NHS Trust, which operates where Kazeema works, said they're dedicated to the safety and well-being of staff and patients. And while incidents of this severity are rare in mental health settings, we take each case extremely seriously, offering substantial support to affected staff, particularly those involved in legal proceedings. I hope that you've had substantial support.
Yeah, getting it still just feels still raw. I'm taking it each day as it goes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I know.
That's the
And
way
of
to do
course,
it.
this comes, Kazeema, it just comes against a backdrop where you lost your sister
I did.
to COVID at the beginning of the pandemic.
Yeah.
You know, your family has suffered immensely.
Yeah.
And you were inspired by your sister, weren't you,
I was, yeah.
in your nursing?
Yeah.
Well, do you think you can carry on as a nurse?
I'll be honest, I'm not sure
No.
what future holds, but I'm still getting better mentally. I don't feel I'm the same person anymore.
No.
I went to work because I need to face the fear because it was getting worse when I was at home. I'm in the same ward. The staff are amazing. I know that I'm safe, but
Are you getting flashbacks?
all the time,
Oh, yeah, I bet you are, yeah.
all the time.
Are you getting help?
Yeah, I've got a lot of help, medication, help, to doctors and everything.
I'm so sorry this happened to you, Kazeema. It's absolutely so traumatic. And you're obviously a fabulous nurse and a caring person.
Thank
It's
you.
absolutely shocking. I hope you feel that you can recover.
Thank you
with
so much.
support.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you for
very much.
having me.
Daniel, thanks
Thank
for
you.
important work. When is the programme?
7 o'clock tonight.
7 o'clock.